CIA's speed reading program that was released in 1953 and declassified in 2001. And when we look at one of the first pages in here, they mention the whole reason they're doing this is that they get one, increased reading effectiveness results in greater work productivity. Two, a well-informed person is a more effective employee. And their analysts were getting stacked with papers and papers and papers and papers, and they could not keep up. And we look at the average reading speed of most people, which it could be around 238 words per minute, but listening speed is around 150 words per minute. Now let me share their results, and I'm looking at a huge bar graph on the screen right now, which you could look at the declassified document that I'll link in the description. Well, what they show is a very big improvement, not just in reading speed, but in comprehension. Some of them, it looks like averaging 788 words per minute. And this is backed by neuroscience of two people that they have right here that they base a lot of their research on. Again, the CIA invested in reading laboratories to make this happen. So University of Chicago, Dr. R. Buswell, and Dr. Samuel Renshaw from Ohio State University, who also trained the military on improving their reading speed, even their sense of taste, and improving their perceptual span and vision. So what I will be covering in my live training, if that's where you came from, the webinar, is just the raw exercises that you could do, the drills. Because they did use technology that is not available anymore, like the Reading Accelerator, a mechanism, a metal mechanism that sits on top of a book, has a piece of metal and slowly moves and covers. And what they've tested is that this timed reading, this paced reading, helps to train the brain to concentrate, to not do eye regression, to be faster and be better. And it would improve. And for those that question this, I mean, they tested their people later, a year later, on their comprehension and retention of the information. They had over an 88% retention of the information. So we know this stuff works. Next, we look at another exercise that worked very, very well, and it worked with the military as well, which was Renshaw's tachyscope. And in the training, we will be doing something very similar, which is just the simple idea of flashing digits or flashing words or flashing groups of words. Now, what does this do to the brain, and how does this make someone a better reader? Well, it makes them a better reader because instead of orthographical processing of the information, which means sounding the words out loud, they are using the ventral stream, which is right here. It goes down this way to the temporal lobe from the occipital lobe, versus when we sound each individual word out and we look at each individual word, we're using more of the orthographic processing, which is the dorsal stream. Okay, that's going up to the parietal lobe. Now, that is still useful, especially for learning new words. But as you grow and become a better reader, we don't want you using 5th grade reading techniques. We want you to use government standard procedure for reading. Another exercise that they used, so I briefly mentioned it, which was flashing digits. So they'd flash 7 digits at 1/500th of a second. And you would have to use your working memory to type that out. They'd make you write it out. Say it out loud and write it out loud. For the training, we will be doing something very similar. We will be using software adaptations, which I think are even better. Another thing that is very important that they mentioned in this program, because this is a 7-week program, a 7-week intensive program. And again, I printed this out. This is something that you could find online and look at it for yourself, okay? Because I don't want you to just base it off of me. You can go read those 205 pages. What they mentioned is that they made sure that the readers that they were training had the proper reading volume within those 7 weeks. They had to read 1 to 2 books a week in order to see results. So you need volume, you need training, because honestly, anyone could read a book a month. It just takes 10 pages a day to read a book a month. So that gets into the other topic, which is you need a reading habit. You need a voracious reading habit. And they had tools and mechanisms to increase reading motivation of their employees, which we'll cover as well. It's something, my own reading systems that I've been doing this full time for the last 3 years. Very fun. I'm loving it. How do we get someone motivated to read? Because they noticed when someone was motivated to read, they had better comprehension, better retention of the information. So in the training, we will have time to cover these memory techniques, specifically PQRST, and have you apply it. I'm not just going to say it and force you to get on the training, so I'll explain that as well. That is preview, question, read, summarize, test. Previewing enhances your brain's comprehension. It's comprehending before the comprehension. It lets you know what you are about to get into. 2, questions. You need to interrogate the book, and you'd have, I would say, 3 to 5 questions that you cannot answer unless you read this book. So that's volume. That is a very solid memory technique everyone should be using. And this book also mentions, what else? I'm trying to find anything else that was important for you. Oh yes, right here. The 3 pillars of the reading process: physical, psychological, and perceptual. Perceptual is obvious. You need to know how many fixations you're placing. Are you placing too many, too little? Very important. Also, your eye health is tied to your nervous system. Also, the eye-mind connection. So when you read, reading is not an eye experience, it's a mind experience. And if you haven't read in a while, and if you're not a voracious reader, you don't have the reading habit, those neurons that fire to make reading easier and more efficient just don't have as much connectivity. So your gray matter and white matter in the important regions of the brain that make you a better reader, that make reading easier, haven't been worked out enough. I've worked with a lot of people that have read, like one guy, he's read 300 books in his life, but in the past 10 years, he has not read a lot. So we trained him and improved him, and his neurons are way stronger now. He's about to read 13 books in 13 weeks. And 2 months ago, he did another sprint with me, and he read 12 books in 12 weeks. So my goal on this live training you are about to attend is just to get you, 1, excited to read, figure out how do we develop this habit for you, put you through training, because we're going to test your reading speed, train you as much as I possibly can on this free call, and then test it again. And hopefully that's enough for you to have a voracious reading habit for the rest of your life. All right, I'm going to take one more final glance here at my notes from this documentation, because this isn't really a planned, scripted video. It's just me telling you why this CIA program is just so surprising and astounding. Yes, so psychological, we'll get into that pillar of the reading process. It's very long, so I can't cover that now, but I'll cover that in the call. Last thing is the 3 levels of vocalization when you read. Because many people try to read, or they've tried speed reading, and they were told, oh, just lose the voice in your head. Eliminate it. But when they did that, their reading comprehension totally dropped, and they didn't know how to do that. On the call, I'll train you with reps, specifically an exercise called the no reading exercise. But here are the 3 levels of vocalization. 1, just simple vocalization, reading out loud. Number 2, subvocalization, the voice in your head. 3, visual reading. And the CIA observed that some people can visually read. They can just look at words and get the meaning. For most people, they have to sound it out, do sound, then process it, and then get it. Versus other people who just see it, immediately process it. So this isn't just something you just decide to eliminate. It is neurological. If you don't have the neurons, if you don't have the connectivity in your brain to get this going, you've got to develop it. And the big thing I help people do, if we get you to read 50 books in the next 12 months, volume of reading in a short period of time will train your brain neurologically. All right, so that's it. Very excited to see you guys on the call or in the training. I'll put as much free resources in that training for you as possible. Thank you so much for listening.